Okay, so let's move on. What I want to do now is to start to build out the actual interface of our to-do list view controller here. And the first thing I want to start with is adding this nice looking navigation bar at the top. What is a navigation bar? It's basically, in the context of this application, it's a piece of screen real estate that allows us to encapsulate three things: the title, and this add button, and the edit button. So the first thing I want you to do is delete this commented out piece of code. I want to make sure to clean up after ourselves. That was some debug stuff just to help us get off the ground. I want to get rid of it and rewind to kind of a blank slate. The next thing I want to do is click on To-Do List View Controller, and I want to change the background color back to white. I just want to take it back to essentially what we've built up that is somewhat the equivalent of what the Single View Application Project template gave us. So basically a blank white canvas. If you run the application now, you'll see just that, a blank white canvas, which is exactly what we want. So we want to add a navigation bar to the top of that. And we're going to do that by adding something called a UI navigation controller to our view hierarchy. So what we've got right now, we've got a UI window that we've put a UI view controller subclass, our to-do list view controller, on top of. And I want to add something in between those. So we have three layers, ultimately. A UI window, a UI navigation controller, and then on top of that is our view controller subclass. So I'm going to insert this UI navigation controller in the middle. What is a UI navigation controller? It is essentially, it's another subclass of UI view controller, but it's a concrete subclass that we can instantiate directly and will provide some critical functionality to us. What it does in general is provide a mechanism to navigate from one view controller to another and back again. So it manages sort of the presentation and dismissal of additional view controllers. So it manages a navigation hierarchy of view controllers. A nice thing that comes along with that is this navigation bar at the top. Oftentimes that is used to provide context, like a back button, from context as far as where we are and where we've come from. So we want to add that essentially in between our window and our view controller. And we're going to do that like so. And I'm going to choose out of these constructors available to us, I'm going to choose the one that accepts a root view controller as the single argument. So what I'm doing is I'm basically creating an instance of UI navigation controller, and I'm passing our instance of to-do list view controller to its constructor. And that basically means that we will end up with something that looks vaguely like this. Our to-do list view controller will occupy the real estate that this list does, and our navigation controller's navigation bar will be visible at the top of that list. There's one more piece of the puzzle that we want to put together here. We want to add this navigation controller to our window as the root view controller. So we're basically going to swap out our view controller for the navigation controller. Because as I said, we're putting it right in the middle. So we've got the window, navigation controller, and then on top of that, our to-do list view controller. And there you go. So by adding that one line of code and replacing the root view controller of the window, we're going to ensure that we now have a navigation controller that provides this navigation bar to us. And we can then customize the navigation bar. So let's run the application and see where we are. Great. So added to our blank white canvas, we now see that we have a navigation bar at the top. And I want to do one remaining thing before we move forward. I just want to set the title of that navigation bar. And we're going to do that like so. In our to-do list view controller.swift, inside of view.didLoad, when we want to do any additional setup after loading the view, I just want to say self.title is equal to to-do list. I don't know if to-do is one word or two words. I don't know. Let's say it's one word. Anyway, view controller has a property called title that basically allows us to put a string at the top there. Set the title to a human-readable string that describes the view. So that's pretty much as simple as you can get. Let's stop and run again and see if that change has taken effect. There you have it. That's pretty exciting. In that one line of code, we added a title to our navigation bar. And this really is only possible when our view controller has been added to a navigation controller. If we did this and we didn't have a navigation controller, it wouldn't take any effect. There would be no title visible because there would really be no screen real estate available to it to display a title. This is really only valid in the context of a view controller that's been added to a navigation controller, because a navigation controller has this screen real estate at the top to display a title. So with that, let's pause there and we'll move on to the next unit.